This is a pandemic of the unvaccinated. We must increase vaccinations among the unvaccinated with new vaccination requirements.
It's not going to work. We have other countries with much higher rates of vaccination, and they're seeing record surges of COVID because that's what viruses do.
Many of us are frustrated with the nearly 80 million Americans who are still not vaccinated.
Them, their freedom. I want my freedom to live.
Rest in peace, Wheezy.
We are going to need the people to engage in age-old American tradition of simply saying, no, I'm not going to comply. Now, what are you going to do about it? It never stops. They want things to get worse because they want you to suffer so that they can grandstand on your suffering and push for even more control.
They have criminalized freedom. They've made getting sick illegal.
This isn't about COVID any more than the Patriot Act was about Al-Qaeda. It's about government asserting more control over your lives, your rights, your properties, and in this case, your bodily autonomy.
It has a lot of vaccinated people alarmed because of the power grab that's involved.
Enough is enough. We better change our tune and start resisting.
Government makes up less than 1% of the population. If even 5 or 10% of Americans simply refuse to comply, all of this goes away.
Absolutely, this is the hill worth dying on.
We haven't given the statutory authority to any agency to do this kind of thing.
There is no such thing as government power. There's only what we are willing to comply to.
We're in the tough stretch, and it could last for a while.
That's what this has always been about. It's never about what they say it is. It's about controlling you. And it ends when we decide to end it.
This BS is going to stop.
It's time for us to wake up.
There's only one way to fight back against this, and it's mass non-compliance.
This is the most important thing to fight against.
You can help stop this. You are the power.
There's nothing, not a single thing we're unable to do if we do it together.
Ah, yes. We are back with another one. It's more fun libertarian infighting because you autistic dorks just love it so much. You say that you hate it, but then it seems like you can't get enough of it because these are always the ones that you keep coming back for. But that's fine. We're gonna do it. We're gonna go there. If you're not familiar with this conversation, it's gonna be an interesting one. It's some of you have already told me, informed me, vocally, loudly, that it's cringe and we shouldn't be doing this, which is all the more reason why, this is the show where we talk about the uncomfortable topics, and it's always uncomfortable. It's often libertarian, and now we're blending both worlds together, it seems. But before we get into that, I got to remind you guys about a couple things. Our sponsors, first and foremost being Y'all in the Downers Club, people like Gigi Vaughn, Zach Anarchy, Mike Stonehouse, Cole. The shorter your name, the better. We've got Stephen Hartman, Anthony Peebles, Jack Casey, Rick Duran, Andrew Sichling, Craig DaCosta, Joe Kabinski, Mitchell Something, Tim Brown, Aaron Stute, Trenton Campbell, David White, Mary Rome, a bunch of people up in there. If you want to get your name on that list and maybe have it read, again, the shorter the better. But go on over to patreon.com/The System Is Down, where you'll get more weird, more raw, more offensive bonus episodes of the show every single week. And it costs you as little as a cup of coffee or a super chat. And since I was demonetized entirely on YouTube a long time ago, it'd be great if you could send me just one super chat a month and got a whole bunch of content in return. It is the Libertarian way. Check it out at patreon.com/The System Is Down. We also have free ounce of Kratom. I am drinking the Kratom right now. If you haven't tried it, now is your chance before the federal government makes it, Schedule 1 drug, because it has no benefits, except it gets me, up and peppy, as you'll find out here as we go, and more annoying. It has benefits, it has upsides and downsides. It also constipates you, but it gets you really hyper and happy, and so if you're down and you're depressed, go try some Kratom. You can try it now for free at freeounceofkratom.com. Enter the promo code TSID to let them know that we sent you, or you can get 5% off your entire order with that promo code, and that includes things like Delta 8 THC, that is weed, delivered directly to your door in all the participating states, which is most of them. Check it out at freeounceofkratom.com or mybravebotanicals.com. We also have... Wait, I don't have my things in here. We've got shirts. We've got shirts in the shirt store. The System Is Down.tv/store. You can get such great shirts as the Let's Go Brandon Classic. You can get the Hail Meta shirt because, as we all know, Hail Meta, and the Forever Purge shirt. I survived the Forever Purge, and all I got was this spicy flu. And you can get Soylent 19, The Vaccine is People, because we all know the vaccine is people. Get those and more at thesystemisdown.tv/store. And check out, last but not least, the one and only Jack Casey at jackcaseybooks.com. You can get such great books as the Royal Green series, which will keep you reading for the rest of your life because they're incredibly long. Or you can get his latest book, WVW, if you're more into the short, the funny, the creepy, dark, weird stuff. I've been reading it, even though it's not out yet. I might be playing a hand in it. But check it out. It's good, and I recommend it at jackcaseybooks.com. WVW is coming out on, I believe, December 11th. So keep an eye out for that and find out more at jackcaseybooks.com. All right, get that out of here, Jack. So a week or so ago, I don't know, whatever, there was a tweet, and that's all that libertarians care about is angry tweets, and something happened and yada yada. We'll get into all of it. I've got a whole panel of guests today here to discuss this spicy fun topic, and we're gonna introduce them all right now. They are as follows: Jeremy Kaufman, DL Cummings, and Dan, Taxation is Theft Behrman. We can just, to make this quick and go around the room, most people know who all of y'all are. You can just give like a short little intro to you, and then we can just jump right into the topic. Jeremy, why don't you go first?
Well, I'm here just as a member of the LPNH communications team, just to sort of talk about the message that we put out and the idea of how we're doing Libertarian Party messaging generally. So that's why I'm here today.
Nice. All right. DL, go ahead.
So I just got invited to talk about it. I think the tweet suggested, hey, if you disagree with us and you're willing to come on a podcast to, put your name out there. So I did. Here I am.
So you disagree? I mean, we don't have to get into it too
Well,
deeply.
in part. Right.
Okay.
We don't have to get into it, but in part.
You're the dad voice and the voice of reason. That's why I put you in between. Typically, you're in between Jeremy and Dan, just so you can break up the fighting. But Dan Behrman.
I guess I'll do my best.
Dan, Taxation is Theft Behrman. Who are you?
Yes.
What are you doing here?
I'm Dan, Taxation is Theft Behrman. I'm running for governor of Texas. I ran for president of the United States as a libertarian, and of course, I love all the fighting on Twitter. It's really fun stuff. I'm recovering from COVID, and I just almost spit whiskey through my nose. So
nice.
I'm playing on a handicap.
Nice. And Dan, your mic sounds like you're going through the computer mic. I don't know if you can fix that, but we will keep going while you check on that. But yeah, guys, thank you so much for being here. Jeremy, you're here in defense of LPNH's incriminating criminal tweet of heresy. Would you like to explain what the tweet was and what your intention was with it? We don't have to get too deep into the intention.
Yeah, I will. I mean, even before I even do that, like just to set the tone.
That's not it. Oh boy, that wasn't it.
Yeah, just to set the tone, like
no, Dan, you switched over, and then it gave a screeching, terrible sound.
Oh shit! But is it back? Is it sounding good at all?
No, I mean it's back to what it was.
I switched to Linux, so fucking. I don't know.
All right, yeah, we'll make do. We can hear you just fine, but go ahead, Jeremy. What were you saying?
Well, like basically, like we are all on the same team. I feel this way even about some of the people that like really dislike us. Some of the people that I've gotten into it with personally, which I want to say this is not about, but it always like. I'm on the same team with whatever the prags, the regime, whoever these people are, the people we don't like, that don't always agree with. I don't. I still see these people as my like allies, and so I'd rather have this conversation be constructive and a discussion of how we can do things better. None of us has figured out the answer as to how to do messaging the right way.
A bunch of people just clicked off when you said you're not here to fight.
Yeah.
We just lost all our viewers. Thanks, Jeremy.
Look, if you want to do the thing,
there will be fighting.
People know I can do the thing. If we want to snap back and forth at one another, like I can do that.
Right.
But I want to try to actually have this be like a more wholesome conversation and not one where I'm going to go to the mat and say we haven't made mistakes in some ways, that we're batting 1,000%. We are trying to experiment. So that's the tone I'm putting out there at the beginning. I guess the next thing I'd say is just to talk about the intent before we. I mean, we can legislate the specifics of it as to is this literally true or not. If people want to have that autistic style
of course
debate.
they do. That's why they're here. That is 100%.
We can. All right, we'll do that. We can do that. But I'll
it's
give
a
the
niche
intent.
market, but I've got it cornered.
Yeah.
Don't take that away from me.
I'll give the intent. I'll pass it off after the intent, and then if we want to get into legislating the truth of it, we can do that next. But the intent is that, like, I think libertarians should have a sense of identity about themselves. I do not think the strategy to victory is to attempt to be co-opting other identity movements. Like, we are a minority. The amount of people who hold our beliefs is a small percentage of the people in America, and we should the sort of roadmap to success for minorities to achieve recognition, to achieve distinction, is to have that sense of identity about themselves and to say, these are the things that we demand. Or won't hold back from fighting for because they're core to who we are. Sort of civil rights style movements of the past. This is how minorities have achieved this kind of thing, and so we can attempt to continue to quote persuade people to be libertarians, which we have a 50-year track record of the success of, or we could also at least at times or explore the fact that, hey, there are a lot of us. We do really believe these things, and we're not going to hold back from saying that we want them, and that's part of the kind of thing that we're trying to encourage. So, all right, I'll pass it off from there.
And the tweet that we're referencing, I don't know if we've actually said what it was, but it is the title of the episode, so I imagine people.
It's a mystery.
Yeah. If you didn't look at the episode title, I guess you're fucked.
Put the tweet up. Put the tweet up or read it. I'll give the literal defense of it, and as to why it is quote literally true. We can do that.
Yeah, absolutely. So the tweet in question was, I don't have it pulled up here, but it was.
Okay. I have it. You want?
Okay. Yeah, just go ahead and read it for us, Deal.
Yep, I'm gonna read it. It says, 2 lines. Racism is pretty much a non-issue in America. Libertarians suffer more oppression than black people. That's it.
All right.
Short
I think the first
sweet
part,
and straight to the confusing point. Jeremy, go ahead.
There's two sentences there. The first part I would say is probably more factually contentious as to but it's also very vaguely stated, pretty much a non-issue. It's going to depend on how you define non-issue and pretty much. I personally think that's the more debatable half of the tweet. I think the second half of the tweet, in terms of literal truth factor, I actually feel pretty strongly that that's true. And we did a series of polls from the LPNH account today. I don't know if there's an ability to pull those up.
Oh, the polls, yeah, I do have them. I want to give Dan a chance to respond before. We'll
come back to this.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah,
Dan.
let me. And I don't even remember what my original point to this was, but okay. Let me throw a couple things out here first. First of all, we're talking about when we're talking about whether or not something's true and what words we're using. Of course, there's always nuance in everything, right? So I think, and I talk about this all the time. Somebody hears one word and they've got a picture in their head of one thing, and the person who said the word has a picture in their head of something completely different. So I think that's a factor to all this, right? When you say, libertarians are more oppressed, do you mean like all libertarians? Because I don't think you can look at the numbers and say, 25% of the prison population in the United States is libertarian, right? Like, but you can say 25% or I don't know what the actual percentage is black. And so I don't think you can actually look at that and say that's actually true. But you did have some good points when you were talking about how libertarians are more oppressed because they reject these ideas, whereas you have other people who are playing into these ideas and accept these ideas, so they're not being oppressed by those ideas. But I think also we have an angle that we can look at this where we can say, like, it's not a contest, guys. Like, it doesn't matter who's being oppressed. The fact is that pretty much everyone is being oppressed somehow, one way or another. And we should end all oppression. Oppression shouldn't be a thing. And so if somebody's being oppressed, we shouldn't say, oh, I don't care about you, I'm being oppressed more. We should say, okay, I'll help you solve your problem, you help me solve mine, and we can all work together to end this system of oppression.
Jeremy, go ahead.
Sure. Yeah.
This doesn't have to
I
be like
don't-
this doesn't have to be like a formal thing. You guys can chime in whenever. If it gets out of hand, I'll shut it down. But yeah, go ahead, Jerry.
Sure.
Yeah, and I wouldn't say that I have any substantial disagreement with that. Like I am all for working for allies, working with people on any issue where we can work with people. And in terms of, but this is why I feel like spending too much time dissecting the literal truth of it, it doesn't go very far, right? It's like basically the I mean, I think Dan explained it, which is basically that like because libertarians are much more against these things. The Social Security analogy, right? That like somewhere between 80 and 96% of Americans want Social Security. They endorse Social Security. They don't regard Social Security as theft. Who's more oppressed by it? And so extend that analogy to all the things that libertarians don't want the government to be doing. And they suffer the most oppression under the system because they actually disagree with it, right? Like that's the entire way in which we would say that has rhetorical truth, right? Whether you completely endorse that or not. So I don't know if we even want to spend more time on it. Like that's the entire thing.
Would you like me to bring up your polls that you had?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's people would agree. I mean, yeah, sure.
So here's a series of polls about oppression. Poll 1 out of 4. Until the 13th Amendment was passed in 1865, it was legal to keep people, primarily African Americans and Native Americans, as slaves. Who was more oppressed by colonial slavery? So what was your point here? Slaves. The slaves were more oppressed.
Right. You're not. The person who is oppressed by a drug being illegal is the drug user. Someone who's not interested in smoking marijuana is not oppressed by a law against marijuana. Their neighbors are, right? Their society. You could argue, maybe start arguing somewhat about like society or something beyond the individual or something. But primarily, the oppression falls on the person who is subject to the thing, right? Like libertarians regard taxation as theft. They genuinely regard it that way, at least most of them, right? They feel, when you feel your tax money taken from you, you experience that as theft. Other people don't, okay? And so part of, I guess, what I'm trying to encourage is when you develop this sense of identity, you're expressing how something feels to you when it happens. Like, when I have to go and fill out my forms to the IRS, right? Like it's like almost worse than it's like worse than being bullied, right? Because there's a bully who's like, fill out these forms and then they take your money, right? Like they don't even just grab your wallet and like take it out. You've got to fill out all of these forms as you do it. Right. Mm-hmm. And the way that, at least, I don't know, maybe I'm the odd man out. I don't know how you guys feel when you have to do your taxes, but like other people don't feel that way. And encourage people to have a sense of empathy. You don't have to think that our view of the world is objectively correct, but this is our subjective experience. We feel pain from these systems and give us a way to live the way that we want to live, even if we're a minority.
Mm-hmm. I think there are there's plenty of other people who feel pain, maybe not so directly, right? Like I've seen plenty of people who are just like, they'll sit there, they'll have panic attacks over, oh my God, I have to do my taxes. They're due next week. I haven't done them yet. And like, they go into like crazy mode, which is bad for their own mental health. And they don't see it as them being robbed, but they can feel the reality of that pain and mental suffering that they're going through. So, you could say, well, do they think they're being oppressed? And they're like, no, I'm getting roads out of this. So ultimately it's a good deal. But like, they know they're feeling some sort of suffering from that. But even more so, you could look at the Harriet Tubman quote where she says, I freed 1,000 slaves and I could have freed 1,000 more if only they knew they were slaves. We could be holding hands with 1 million other people saying, hey, we're oppressed, if only they knew they were oppressed. And if they don't know that they're oppressed, then maybe they just need to be shown, hey, you're being oppressed. This isn't right. This isn't just the way things are, right? Because you look at so many things in this world, right? You look at bigotry, where you have people who are racist, and it's not like they made a calculated decision. Oh, this group of people, I don't like them because of the way that they are. It's because like the generation before them put a thought into their head, and that's just all they ever knew. And I've met so many people who have told me, oh yeah, I was racist in my younger days, but then I was introduced in some way or another to something, this black, this Mexican, some sort of cultural thing. And they're like, that totally blew my mind, because I always thought these people were, whatever my grandparents told me about them, which was totally disgusting. And that's not true at all. And so now their worldview changes. So like you have these things that are like culturally propagated throughout society. And until people actually stop and say, hey, wait, you're seeing things wrong. This isn't good. This is oppression. You're being oppressed. Then that's where we can have more people who can actually wake up and say, oh yeah, I get it now. I am being oppressed. And so let's actually do something about it.
Yeah.
Sorry. DL, I'm gonna tag you in at certain points. I know you're the Liberty Dad because you're the reasonable, rational, calm one, which means you probably won't get a word in here if I don't tag you in. So I'll tag you in now.
I'm listening, and I'm just kind of thinking about what's being said. I think the first thing that comes to mind for me is that I look at these two sentences, and if I understood what Jeremy said a moment ago, he said that the first is less defensible than the second. Did I hear you correctly on that?
That is my personal opinion.
Okay.
Right.
Because I think that the first one is actually more defensible, mostly, and it's kind of for different reasons. The first one is more defensible, I think, because I think when we look back and we see what society actually is, how it actually operates, I think that there's a strong argument to be made. The second one, I don't think you can. I mean, we could certainly pull up data and charts, and we can say, all right, technically who's more oppressed and in what ways. But I think what happens is with the second one, we're in a culture right now where the idea of oppression is a big deal. And there's jokes made like, oh, it's the oppression Olympics and all this other stuff. So I think what's happened is you've got a lot of minority groups that are, in a way, they've kind of been told that you need to compete in order to stand out for your oppression, because and it feels that way, right? Like when we're watching these different communities come out and say, like, here's what's bothered me. It seems like, this community starts out right here, and then this other community comes out and goes, oh yeah, well, we face this, and it almost, it's almost like who is actually being oppressed more. So I think part of that second one needs to be more like reading the room a little bit and saying, okay, how are people understanding this, not really this line per se, but just this idea of oppression, right? And I think that I think what's problematic about libertarians suffer more oppression than Black people is people are kind of primed to say, I'm feeling oppressed, and if you say that you're more oppressed than me, then I have to compete for it, or I have to in some way negate yours because you are negating mine, right? And I think that's part of the problem with this second sentence.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. And there is, of course, a partial intent, or at least a comfort with letting people be provoked by it, to ask what we regard as an interesting question, which is like, if there is this sense of viewing and respecting minorities, why shouldn't we count? Why don't we count? Right. And allowing people.
Now, when
who
you
we
say
know
we, DL, do you have any mix in you? I'm hoping that it's not just four straight white dudes talking about how oppressed they are, but
let me just say, I never pull out the Jew card here.
I mean, I
could also
I
pull
am
that card out.
20% Native American. I don't know if that counts these days or not, but I mean,
don't know.
there's that.
It's a tricky line.
Let me tell you this. So a lot of people will say like, oh, you're passing or whatever, other BS terms. And it's funny because when I was growing up, this is what I heard from all my friends. And it was not meant in malice in most cases. It was, no, but seriously, what are you? Right? Like, seriously, like I would be like, no, I'm white. And they're like, no, but seriously, what are you? And nobody wanted to assume that I was white. However, I got older, started becoming vocal about conservative ideas and now libertarian ideas. And all of a sudden it's like, yeah, but you're white adjacent, you're passing, you're kind of white. And I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. White people didn't want to claim me growing up and all my life, but all of a sudden I get to be white because I have the wrong ideas. No, I ain't buying that. So am I mixed of something? Yes, I am. Have I experienced the obviousness of being different from other white kids? Yes. Was it largely positive? In most cases. I mean, I did. There were a few times where people, like when I had hair when I was younger, kids thought I was Mexican, and they would make fun of me and use insulting terms to my face to try to goad me into fighting or doing something or whatever. So I did experience a little bit of racism, but largely my experience was relatively positive. So it's not just for white guys. You guys are safe-ish. You're safe adjacent.
I'll say it counts.
But I'll give an example. As a libertarian, people frequently, assume that I'm a white man or call me a pedophile, right? And that's an example of anti-libertarian bias and bigotry that exists in society.
Do you want to qualify that a bit for the people who aren't libertarians who are lilistening? They just think we're all pedophiles. I don't know why.
Why would libertarians be pedophiles?
No, I mean, I'm serious. I'm trolling a little bit, but I'm also being completely serious at the same time. There's always both there. Look at the way in which libertarians openly get called pedophiles and attacked as being pedophiles by prominent people in society. This is an okay thing to say. And how is that any different than saying that gay people are pedophiles, which used to be something that was said about gay people, right? And now that would be absurdly bigoted. That is not something that you could say. But you can make that joke about libertarians. Why is that okay? Why do we take that? Why are we defensive about that? Why are we like, oh no, no, of course we're not.
So
and we have to take it.
I guess
we should be like, fuck you. You're not allowed to fucking say that, you asshole. Like that should be,
Yeah.
I don't disagree. I guess where I'm having a little bit of trouble with this, with your comment is I'm not terribly familiar with it being that common to call libertarians pedophiles, because most of the people that I run into, and I run into a lot of people, and they're like, "What's a libertarian?" And so like they're not even sure who we are,
this is on Twitter.
let alone talking. But I've never run into somebody who's like, "What's a black person?" Right? like I feel like if we're going to compare it in that sense, I mean, at least people know who, like they know what a black person is, what a woman is, what a
right, but that's not always right either.
So
because
I don't
because a lot of them will say like they'll say like oh, you're black, you must vote Democrat, right? I know who you are, and so like so yeah, it's kind of like once they think you know you, and this kind of goes back to the original point about like generalizations, like it's almost kind of like once everybody thinks they know what a libertarian is, then shit's going to get really ugly, because then they're going to be like, every single person is going to have their own stereotype of what a libertarian is, and it's going to be terrible. Versus like when somebody meets you and you're like, I'm a libertarian, it's like, oh, you can tell them whatever you want, and the truth is, whatever you tell them, they're probably going to run into another libertarian and assume they're the same as you. Oh yeah, I know this other libertarian, and if you say one thing that doesn't agree with the other libertarian, oh, that libertarian is going to say, oh, you're not a real libertarian, and like there's going to be like all this mess going on. So and I think there is a lot. That's kind of what a lot of this chaos is in the liberty movement. Between people saying like, oh, this is what a libertarian is, and like, oh, how do you treat homeless people? That's not libertarian, all this other stuff. I think that's really important. But I think like as people, like the libertarians in general are typically trying to fight some sort of oppression, usually government oppression. And I think one of the most important things we should do in that is stay away from generalizations as a whole, and we should not make that our thing, because generalizations are how we got into this mess that we're in the first place.
Right.
I'm just going to throw this comment up there because, Jeremy, you didn't actually address this. You didn't address the reason why people think we're pedophiles, and I think it's an important distinction to point out that it has to do with the age of consent laws. Not just because so many of us are pedophiles. That's not the reason, but yeah.
And
yeah, that's true. I mean, this is just
for the people that are new.
Twitter. I was on Twitter, and like somebody there was like a group of trans friends who, you know, we were saying something, and you know, I started talking to them. Like I said something as a joke, and it was like, oh, I posted a link to like one of my websites because they were talking about something, and I was like, oh, here's one. It's related, right? They got pissed off because I was spamming, but not because I was spamming, because I go through their tweets and like they're posting links and stuff. No, it had nothing to do with spamming. It's because I'm a white cis male, and so this group, which is funny because this is the same cancel culture group that was going after Dave Chappelle. They're coming after me, and they're making all these assumptions about how I hate trans people and all this other stuff. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Some of my best friends are trans, and I'm supporting their campaigns to run for offices. Like, you don't know anything about me, but you're making all these assumptions based on my physical appearance and trying to call me your oppressor when I'm actually trying to reach out with the olive branch and say, hey, let's be friends. And I actually, like, the conversation devolved into it at some point where I was like, you know what? I do support your rights. Can we be friends now? Can we be friends now? I tweeted 500 times, can we be friends now? And they were just like, no, you piece of shit, and blah, blah, blah. And like, oh, we're going to block you, and we're going to troll you. And like, and it's like there's that much resistance to just shaking someone's hand based on their physical appearance and what your assumptions are about them. And like, I think we have to recognize that's not just, you know, we have to get rid of this idea that like only white people can be racist and nobody else can be racist. Like, these ideas are out there floating around, and it all goes back to the generalizations.
And you know, I think one of the best ways for libertarians to break down any generalization really is literally to go and this will be tough for some of you out there watching, but this is to literally go out to places, stick your hand out, and say hello, right? And talk to people in person, eyeball to eyeball. When I first got involved with the Liberty movement, I kind of got involved locally, and then I started getting involved in the state level. And there were a few characters that just they were like, look, I'm sorry, Jeremy, but you don't hold a candle to a few people that I know in terms of shit posting. Okay. Like you were pretty tame compared to a couple of other people that I could think of. Right. And so one of them, I would go back and forth because I was like, dude, what are you doing? Like, this is crazy what you're saying. Like, it's insane. And we would go back and forth and kind of hash it out online.
Give us a couple tweets, Deal. Go ahead and say them out loud first.
Oh, man, I don't have any tweets, but I know he would say things like, you know, we need to show up to the state capitol with guillotines, and they need to be sharpened and ready and grab them as soon as they walk out the door. Like,
somebody clip that. Liberty Dad podcast right there.
Yep, there it is. I'm getting canceled tonight, I'm telling you, right? So when he would say things like that, and I was like, dude, what? Like, that's crazy.
Yeah,
he's a big
we're
dude,
not trying to be
right?
crazy. We're trying to always have a
right.
point. I will, you know,
Right.
yeah.
And I went and I know a lot of people will go back and forth with you, Jeremy, or anybody really, sometimes me as well. And then you hear it all the time. Oh man, at convention, you were over in the corner. No, don't do that. Go up and say, and I went up to this guy, and I mean, he's a big dude, you know, he kind of looked scary, if you will, you know, biker look, and had all kind of tattoos. And I walked up and I just stuck my hand out. By the way, in case anybody doesn't know, I'm 5'3" and I weigh 120 pounds. Okay, so I am not exactly intimidating whatsoever.
He's pretty small.
You know, but I went up.
I've seen him in real life.
I went up and I shook his hand the first chance I got, right? And him and I are on good terms. Now, I still think he's, you know, a bit wild and out there, and he knows this, you know, and I've criticized him. But I think that's what we need to start doing, because if we can't do it internally, we're not going to be able to do it externally. That's just the way it is, because at least we have common ground. Even people that oppose Jeremy or me or Dan or anybody, at least we have some common ground to work with. But people outside the party, people that are not libertarians, we lack a lot of common ground. So we really need to figure out how to sit down, shake hands, and talk to them so that they can say, okay, you've had some crazy tweets, but you know what? You're actually a pretty nice guy.
So this brings up.
I want to disagree with that last point real quick.
Hey, you're a nice guy.
Actually, have no. Well, yeah. Some people don't think so. No, there's actually like a lot of people that you would think libertarians have zero common ground with. We actually have a lot of common ground. But you know, to your exact point, you have to go out and talk to these people and have these conversations. And like, and because I used to do this all the time, and I used to say all the wrong things, and people just be like, yeah, you're libertarian trash. I don't like you, right? But then, like, once you learn how to have those conversations and actually listen to people to find the common ground instead of just like, barfing out taxation and stuff in their face, there is so much common ground. And I've talked to people like the far left Bernie bros and the far right Trumpsters and everything. It doesn't, the entire spectrum, we have so much common ground. We just have to stop thinking about what we want and just listen to them and find out what they want, and then say, and then connect the dots. That's it. It's that simple.
No, I agree. I do. And that was poor wording on my part.
I would actually disagree with that a little bit, in the sense that I think that a lot of I think a lot of voting is much more of a tribal affiliation, a mood affiliation towards various teams. One team of which people are particularly not aware of and or think is full of weirdos if they are, but that like most people do not have serious policy preferences. Part of why people feel persuadable when you have a conversation with them as a libertarian is you may actually understand policy when no one does, or very few normal people do. So having any conversation with them, they'll be persuadable in the moment, but they don't actually have any. They don't actually really have policy preferences. They have preferences in terms of this is the team that I'm on, and or which team should I be on? Which team is appealing for me to be on? And this is what part of why I do think. And I'm not against trying to meet someone where they are. Of course, you should try to do that and understand them and their perspective and where they're coming from, and be empathetic and all of these things. But you also have to very much be representing and presenting something as something that they would want to be a part of, or would be comfortable identifying as, or whatever.
So that raises the question of, the real question here, the real debate, if you want to even call it that, it's not, isn't whether or not we are more or less oppressed than somebody else. The real debate is this the right messaging for the Libertarian Party? And actually, just came in today, we got this little nugget from the Libertarian Party and their effective communications. When you give the communications fund, give to the communications fund, you help the message of liberty reach further than ever and strengthen our ability to be seen and heard. It's a fundraiser to help us communicate better. I have my thoughts on this. I won't get into it too deeply, but I'm curious as to you guys' thoughts and what the Libertarian Party should be doing other than raising $10 at a time to communicate better. We did give them $30,000, and they did produce a video.
I'd like to see how many clicks and views they got for that, running ads on that video that money was raised for.
Well, I can find out pretty fast, but go ahead.
I think that, I don't disagree with what they're saying, but I think that we need to make sure that we deliver, right? And this is the big, like, libertarians.
We need transparency. We need to know where the hell this money is going, or why are we donating to have better communication? Well, what does that even mean?
So let me say something, and this, since we're all about controversial stuff here, and I don't want to drag it into another issue, but I heard something that really bothered me, and I've heard it plenty of times in nonprofit organizations, because I've been an officer in different nonprofit organizations in different spheres, so like real estate and technology and stuff like that, right? And during one, I'm just going to leave it at this, during one of the LNC meetings, somebody made a comment, and they said, "We're just volunteers." Right. And it was part of a broader comment, which I don't want to drag up. It might have been a suspension hearing, but they said, "We're just volunteers, and we don't get the same privileges that are on the outside." And the latter part we can disagree with or agree with, but it's that we're just volunteers. No, you're not. You are literally a steward of an organization that exists for the sole purpose of promoting liberty and even bringing liberty to the masses, because we're engaged in the political sphere, right? So tearing down legislation, so on and so forth. And I think what we need to start doing is start expecting that our leadership look at it like this is a serious responsibility. Now, that doesn't mean that we have to all be serious when we get on Twitter necessarily, or in our communications. I mean, there is a time and a place where I think that crazy or wild messaging has a value. But I think the first and foremost is to say, I'm not just a volunteer. I am a steward of liberty. And this job, even though it's not paying, it is really important. And people should be very, very angry if I'm not delivering. So back to my $30,000. Did you deliver? I don't even know.
Right. Yeah, and according
was that a job audition? Are you throwing your hat in the ring there, DL?
Well, I know that they just hired somebody.
No, I think he's absolutely right. Like, especially because these people aren't just volunteers that oh, I showed up, give me something to do. No, these are people who ran for an office and got elected.
Well, the communications, I think, was a hired position that they applied for, because I know somebody who applied for it. And according to Justin O'Donnell, I can't fact check this right now, but he said that they had a communications person, which I know they were just taking applications earlier this year. That communications person that they hired just quit, apparently. So I guess that's where the money is going, is to convince somebody else to take the job, I suppose. Yeah. But can't confirm.
I mean, I'll say on the communications front, it's dumb that they don't just, what they should pursue is using their money to just enable the people who are the best at doing it. Because you do have all these people who are really passionate about liberty, who care about it so much. I think Dan, of course, is an example of this with all of his work. And,
you're going to have to be more specific.
Those people.
Yeah. That's all of us.
I'd say both.
Our gracious host,
all
our
the
very
Dans
talented
here.
host.
All the Dans.
Yeah. And I mean, I just think it's crazy that they don't do more in that direction. They just hire one person to do the job, and I think it's just a bad way of doing it.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, for $30,000, you can hire an agency who specializes in that stuff, and they can make sure that this video content is going to go get 10 million views. $30,000 is a lot. You
want to know how many videos I would have given them for $30,000?
I think
about
it's very
30.
difficult.
About 30.
Yeah. I don't know. I think it's very difficult to reliably turn $30,000 into 10 million views, quite frankly. And
I think it's
to the extent
possible. On a single video, they have the content produced, right? You take that single video, you can definitely get millions of views out of 10, 20, 30 grand. Absolutely.
It can happen. Is there any vendor in the world that is going to reliably again, it can happen, but that's going to reliably do that? No, there's no advertising or marketing agency that's going to or 10 million organic views just from one random $30,000 video. I don't know. This is the most heated we've disagreed.
These are some weeds.
But this is the thing. You hire an agency who knows the weeds on all these platforms. And there are so many advertising. I mean, everybody thinks Facebook and Twitter and Google, and that's it. That's your advertising platforms. There are so many platforms out there, and you can get views. You can get 100 views for a penny on different platforms. It's ridiculously cheap because these markets are so saturated.
I got $30,000 to spend myself, Dan. I'll tell you that. So if you've got someone who can reliably get me 10 million views for $30,000, you pass that name along to me, and I'll hire them. All right.
Well, so Jeremy, you basically run Odyssey. Can't you just jack up the numbers and say that you did?
I don't run Odyssey anymore.
That's probably for the best.
I run a company that has a stake in Odyssey currently, but I do not run Odyssey. Yeah.
So I'd like to shift a little bit here because I think there's something of serious importance that we should probably talk about because I'd like to get your guys' opinion on this. So one of the revelations that I had actually came from the New Hampshire tweets a while back, and I don't remember which one it was, but I know that it was one of those saucy ones. It might have been the Civil Rights Act that kind of really clicked for me with this idea, and it wasn't really so much related to the Civil Rights Act. But I started noticing that there seemed to be this divide, right? You have people that either agreed with it or disagreed with it, kind of, right? That was kind of your split, the primary split that you had. And I started watching what people were saying. Now, I know that, I'm seeing in the comments, people are like, oh, Twitter's not a real place. It's not, but people do express real ideas, right? So those are at least some real ideas that they might feel in some sense. And so one of the things that I started noticing is that people seemed to only be able to, I don't know if it was they were only willing to or only capable of using messaging that flowed with how they thought. And so I was like, oh, you know what? I've been doing that myself. So I started challenging myself. I was like, all right, well, can I take something that I think is a bit wild and crazy and drive the conversation back to a place where I can work with it? Right. And this comes from this idea of communication, because one of the big things about me is just, hey, we need to spend a lot less time reading all the, libertarian philosophers and a lot more time reading books on communication and how do we better communicate different ideas. Right. And, I started realizing, like, if we're really if we already have the ideas that are so great, we don't need to read any more about them. What we need to do is figure out, okay, how can we deliver them? How can we get them into the brains and the minds of people that need to hear them? And how can we do it in such a way that forces them to run against, a mental brick wall and say, whoa, what the hell happened here? What's going on? And so I started saying, like, maybe I can take some of these tweets and develop, craft my own message after the fact and say, okay, let's bring this back to a place where I'm comfortable dealing with it. So do you guys see that? Is that something that you feel is maybe a problem in the libertarian community, where people are only stuck on messaging that they that they're comfortable with? They're not versatile enough?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head, because I used to do this when I first got introduced to, like, the Libertarian Party, and it was like, you run into somebody and it's like, oh my God, you got to read this book. It'll change your life, right? It'll like open your mind to everything. And it's like, we live in a world of sound bites that doesn't get that far, right? And especially, to Jeremy's point, like, where we have this culture club thing, wherever you're either in the blue club or the red club. People are in those clubs because of, like, one line rhetoric, for a lot of it, or like for very small, like, idealistic anchors, these things that they can connect with. So we absolutely need something like that. But it's kind of difficult when I think we have a slightly different problem, because it's easy for the Democrats, right? Because the Democrats are basically like, oh, we want to help people in need and give them all kinds of free stuff, right? And it's like, yeah, that's a very broad plan that you can get a lot of people really excited about, right? Like, any plan that you have, give something away for free. People don't even care what it is; they'll sign up for it, right? And so that works really well. But, like, when you're trying to tell people, like, no, we want to take something away from you, we want to take away government, we want you to have less, then they're like, wait, you want to take away my XYZ? Now we sound like the oppressors. We're trying to take this away from you and oppress you by you're not going to have Social Security, you're going to have roads with more potholes. This is what it sounds like, and that's absolutely a big factor of messaging. But there are ways around that, and the problem that I found, and I have solutions to it, is to say, okay, look, everybody has their own individual needs and their own individual pain points, and when you identify what those are and you kind of break them off into market segments, and you talk directly to those segments about that issue, like, hey, I can solve that issue, then those people will totally latch on to that. And this is actually what the Democrats and Republicans have been doing too. Like, if you look at the Democrats, like, they're broken up into, like, Fight for 15, right? That's like one sector of the Democratic movement, and they get all these people through this. Oh, yeah, we need to increase minimum wage, and then they tell them, oh, go vote Democrat, right? It's not candidates out there. Candidates are, like, kind of cross-endorsing that message, but they have that, and then they have the other one. They have Black Lives Matter. Then they have the other one, which is Medicare for all these different programs. And Republicans are basically the exact opposite. Let's just keep everything the way it is. And then Libertarians are kind of like in the other direction, like, no, let's get rid of some of this crap because it doesn't need to be here. So it's an even, I think, a harder sell, because you're interrupting that stuff. But if you can get into people's faces and say, like, hey, I want to give you more. I want to make your healthcare more affordable. Well, how are you going to do that? I've had conversations with Bernie bros where, like, 5 minutes in, they're like, why don't we just get rid of the FDA? Won't that help? Yeah, that's a great idea. Wow, that's a great idea you just thought of. And it works, but you just have to have these conversations and, like, realize not everybody cares about saving money on their taxes if they're not a millionaire. You got to figure out where is where do they benefit? That's where you get them.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how much more time we'll have to explore this in depth. I would say that I continue to disagree with this model of persuasion a little bit, in that I think very, very few people, it may describe libertarian type people or people with the potential for libertarianism, but very, very few people are seriously considering these policy issues. And even if in a one-on-one conversation you're able to get them to quote be persuaded or express a persuasion on one particular policy issue that you discuss, I think that will not actually move very many of them to actually vote libertarian in the next election. But I don't know. We've only got maybe 5 to 10 more minutes.
So Jeremy, would you say that you're
just a disagreement we just have? Fine.
Jeremy, would you say that your goal with this is just to, push some buttons and get the people talking, and then we can figure it out after that?
Look, on Twitter in particular, right? And let's remember this is Twitter, libertarian Twitter. A lot of that is not about reaching voters in New Hampshire. How many prospective voters in New Hampshire are following Libertarian Party New Hampshire of Twitter to consider if they're going to vote that party or someone else? It's mostly people who are into the Libertarian Party, who like Libertarian Party ideas. They kind of go around and follow the best state accounts. I like what this one is doing. I see Twitter, at least partially or somewhat, or sometimes, certainly not exclusively, but at least partially, as a place for libertarians to be exploring with other libertarians what kind of messaging they like, to be talking to one another, to be showcasing what they're each accomplishing or doing, to be encouraging each other and this kind of thing. And so that tweet was for libertarians. That was for people who are already libertarians, both for them to engage with the idea as well as to see the reaction to it. Right.
But if it goes the way you plan, I assume a bunch of people are going to have buzz about it, and then people outside the liberty movement are obviously going to see it as well. And you obviously said it in such a way that would get some shit stirred up a bit, to say the least. So.
Well, I think also an important point on that is we have to. This is I've heard all kinds of business development experts will all say the same thing. Advertising experts, salespeople, the same thing. Yeah, we can have discussions within a libertarian circle to see what kind of messaging we like, but the messaging that we like is completely unimportant. It doesn't matter to anything, because at the end of the day, you've got 1% of the population identifies as libertarians, and they're already going to vote libertarian. We don't need messaging for ourselves. What we need to know is what messaging works with Democrats, Republicans, or unaffiliated voters that gets them to say, hey, I think these libertarians are onto something, and come over and to support us. Because otherwise we're just kissing each other's asses and not going anywhere. We're not growing. We're not reaching more people.
Sure, but part of what we're suggesting with this message is that as well, I'm not that we should not be doing that. We want more people in our club, but we also have a club of 1%, and that's a tremendous amount of people. And it's okay. And we should also be looking at ways and strategies where we are demanding recognition as ourselves, stand together as 3 million people, and say we are 3 million people who feel strongly about these things. We don't care if we're a minority. Okay, we are a minority, and we still deserve to be respected and treated and live accordance with our beliefs. There are ways that society can do that in a way that is not that the general public, I think, would be okay with. Right? Let me publicly identify as a libertarian and opt out of some things. Let's look at strategies in this space where we look at if we stand strongly enough and together enough, even with just the % or 2 that we have, what can we get right now? The Amish don't pay Social Security. The Amish don't have to sign up for the draft. And they were able to get those carve-outs from the federal government because they stood together and demanded things. And so to encourage this kind of civil rights style thinking, all right, that was the intent. Maybe it was a miss. I'm not saying we hit it out of the park.
I got a question,
there's
though.
some validity to that.
Yeah.
I don't disagree, but I do have a question, because let's assume for a moment that I'm a younger libertarian, right? Because I'm 43, so I'm halfway to old now. But let's say I'm a younger libertarian and I'm not necessarily on board with all of the idea of what they like call edgelording and all that, right? So you put that tweet out, or anybody puts that tweet out, really, it doesn't, anybody puts out a tweet, and then it's public. And in some cases, people might ask me and say, "Hey, what's up with this tweet from New Hampshire? What's going on there?" So now I have to answer for a tweet that I didn't make, that I may not understand, that I may not agree with, or maybe I'm not on board yet with. So when you talk about, hey, I'm getting to my question. Sorry, it's a long one. When you talk about, hey, we need to be a club and kind of unite together, how does putting me in that position bring me to uniting with you? Because I honestly, I'm gonna feel like, man, I'm in a tough spot. I'm in a rock and a hard place, because either I disagree, I don't know, or I'm in a tough place, and I'm not looking at you so fondly now. So how does that bring us together?
Now, Jeremy, before you answer that, I know you got to go here basically now. So you can respond, give any final thoughts, any plugs you want to do, and after you leave, we'll obviously talk a bunch of shit about you and call you bad names. But we'll just
do
wrap
it to
up
my
after that.
face. Do it to my face at least.
Yes, you're an asshole. But
You can watch it later.
Right. Yeah. If you sign up for the Downers Club. But
no, I think that's totally fair. Question and comment, and I have empathy for that. Like, I don't want to be making other people's jobs, or we don't want to be making other people's jobs or efforts harder. So I'll say two things. One is, I don't think there are that many people, except as a kind of gotcha, that are like sincerely interested in liberty in some other state, that are like, also following the New Hampshire party, or that these are some national story that's getting their, attention, this kind of thing. But more importantly, I'm not saying it never happens either. But more importantly, I think the answer is that, like, it's a chance to talk about libertarians and their principles of decentralization, and explain the way that the LP works. Hey, it's bottom up. We're not them, and I think it can also be okay for LPs to disagree. We're not saying that, like, if you disagree with us or disagree with this, that you're wrong or stupid. And if you as in your community disagree with something that another affiliate says, I think it's okay to just be like, yeah, that's libertarians in Massachusetts or whatever. Those are the libertarians in New Hampshire. And if the rest of the party needs to, paint us as the crazy uncle or whatever, you can explain away New Hampshire if you have to. I mean, I actually don't want us to have that reputation necessarily. Right. Hopefully that's not what we're doing or what we're getting. But like, I think that's a totally good answer to give someone, which is to explain, like, hey, you don't have to, affiliates shouldn't have to feel like they're responsible for us. This is a bottom up decentralized movement. Those are principles that people can understand. And, we're two separate groups, and you're not us.
Yeah. Well, Jeremy,
right, so
you can go ahead.
Uncle.
Yeah. Jeremy, you can go ahead and bail if you need to. Tell people where they can find more about you and all the shit you got going on.
Yeah, you can follow me, although I'm not posting currently. Not going to talk about that. Follow LPNH on Twitter as LPNH. We're also on other social media platforms, Facebook, etc. If you do support LPNH, you can give a donation to us or become a member if you like the kind of thing that we're trying to do. And we're also especially receptive to feedback from our members. So we'd love to have you join our affiliate.
Absolutely. Thanks, Jeremy. Appreciate it. And you can bounce.
Thanks, guys.
And we can talk now about all the stuff we wanted to say about Jeremy Kaufman, because he's gone.
All right.
No, we'll just we'll wrap here, and we might actually go. If you guys are down, we could jump over to the bonus section and do a little bit of after party stuff. Are you guys good on time?
I'm good.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Yeah, it won't be long, but I do wanna keep this conversation going, because I hate having to keep these conversations within an hour, especially when it's such a grand topic and there's so many things that I'd love to chat with all of you guys on. And I'd feel like you don't really start the conversation till around an hour. But why don't we, out of fairness to Jeremy, why don't we go ahead and, DL, give your final thoughts, and we'll wrap up.
Well, I mean, I think the biggest thing is, I think, you know, I think the biggest thing is, I think, you know, 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 I think, I think my final thought is for people that are listening, especially people that oppose the messaging. I think the only thing that you can do is change you. And we spend way too much time trying to change somebody else. And I think it actually makes you stronger if you say, you know what, look, I'm going to figure out how to work with this messaging. I don't like it, but there's not much I can do about it, or maybe I'm uncomfortable with it, whatever the case may be. Because the better you end up making yourself better when you do that. And you end up making yourself a better advocate of liberty. You can fight the people and say, stop doing it, or you can just figure out how to work with it and then take it and make it useful. I mean, literally, where do you want to spend your time? That's basically what it amounts to.
Cool. And tell people where they can find you.
You can find me, as you see on the screen here, Liberty Dad Pod. I'm on Twitter a little bit too much, probably. And I am the affiliate chair here in Duval. So we've got some cool things going on. So we're always doing something. Look us up. You can find us. You can just look up Duval LP in Google, and you'll find us on Facebook. You'll find us on Meetup as well. We have 2 meetings a month, and we're getting ready to have our Black and Gold banquet to celebrate the Libertarian Party's birthday. So that's coming up soon. And so if you're in the Jacksonville area, definitely look us up. We would love to have you come out and visit us.
Right on. And last but not least, of course, Dan, Taxation is Theft Behrman. What are your final thoughts? What do you want? You get the final say. What do you want to leave these people with?
Oh man, taxation is theft. That's it. See you later, guys.
Peace out, guys. Thank you for watching. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I think there have been a lot of great ideas here. I think Jeremy's got a lot of great points about this is a decentralized organization. We have created probably not intentionally a system that operates just like government. We have this kind of like system of it's bureaucratic. The voting system is something that nobody likes. It doesn't represent us because the messaging is never right. We have that, but I think what's more important is to start looking at that. How do we do things decentralized? Let's use this party as a system to show that decentralization actually works and actually makes people happier.
Right.
And let's do that by saying, let's forget about the state, the government rules that they're trying to impose on the party itself. Let's do whatever we have to do for them to make them happy, to keep our ballot access and everything else. But outside of that, let's break the rules. Let's show them what people are doing. Let's show them what people are doing to promote liberty and to do things better. I've reached out to my state party and to the national party. I've been Bernie Sanders has been nonstop on Twitter talking about, the cost of insulin. And I'm like, hey guys, I'm smuggling insulin in from Mexico. You need some cheap, I got it for you. It's the exact same brand you buy in the United States, exact same quality. And they don't want to promote it. They don't want to promote. And I've talked to so many candidates who are doing great things. They don't want to promote it because they're afraid. They're like, we don't have approval. This person doesn't have a nomination yet. We have no obligation to promote candidates. No, but you show that liberty works when you have people who are out there, doing things that actually help people in the absence or even against government's will. And that's how you get people on board to say, like, yeah, why is the government in this guy's way? Why is the government trying to stop them? And this is what the party could be promoting. And then they don't have to actually say, well, we don't support this. Kind of like what Jeremy was saying, let's create the discussion. This guy's smuggling insulin. What do you think about that? And now there's a conversation in the thread saying, oh, it's good. Oh, it's bad. Oh, it's, we should change the law and just fix it. And you start that conversation. And I think that would be amazing without having to actually endorse an idea itself or a policy itself. Which avoids the whole top-down thing of, the party doesn't represent me because they're pushing this XYZ. So, right. I don't know. That's my thought.
Right on. And I got to say, it's really annoying to have a debate, quote-unquote, where I agree with everybody on pretty much everything. But, Dan, thank you for being here, and tell everybody where they can find you and all your illegal, deplorable activities you got going on.
Sure. Dan for Texas, right? Dan for Texas on Twitter. danforfreedom.com. And of course, legalizehappiness.org, rentfreeamerica.org, and freehealthcare.org, which I know they sound totally lefty organizations. But again, these are messages that are actually getting libertarianism in the hands of lefties, and it's doing a great job. So check those out. if you're interested in supporting any of those messages.
Awesome. And both of you guys, I want to get you both back on here individually sometime soon because I love you guys. And let me wrap this up real quick and we'll jump over into bonus for a bit. But you guys just hang tight and we'll be right back after this. So, all of you people, thank you for watching. Thank you for tuning in. That is not the screen I wanted. It was not that one either. It is here somewhere. It is.
Can't get rid of me.
It's this one. All right. See you guys. Yeah, thank you to all of you for tuning in. Thank you for being here for this this fun conversation. Did it go? Was it as spicy as you were hoping for? I don't care. Whatever. That's not what we're here for. I mean, I wouldn't have complained if it did, but like I said, great guys, a lot of them, a bunch of differing opinions, but this is it's an interesting topic that I think it's fine to have differing opinions on. It doesn't make you a racist or it doesn't make you whatever label people want to put on things that they don't understand. So yeah, we're going to continue this conversation over in the Downers Club. If you're not in there, go get in there now, and I might be able to squeeze you in if you alert me somehow that you're in there, but go over to patreon.com/thesystemsdown. Get that and all of our bonus content. We usually do after parties. We usually do all sorts of fun things, and it gets more wild and crazy over there because we're not under the overlord's thumb of YouTube. But thank you again for tuning in, and we will talk to you guys next time. I got a lot of shit coming up this week. I've got the news on Wednesday and at 2 p.m. corn time, as always. And I believe we're talking to Ian Crossland from Timcast IRL on Thursday. And then next week, I'm going on Tower Power Hour and a whole bunch of crazy shit. So lots of stuff going on. I hope you enjoy it, and I hope you enjoyed this. But until then, question everything, stay uncomfortable, and I'll see you Wednesday. Bye.
Hey guys, thanks for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe on your way out and help us change the world one uncomfortable conversation at a time. And if you like what you hear and you want to hear more, go join the Downers Club at patreon.com/thesystemsdown for bonus episodes of the show every single week. Until next time, please continue to question everything, stay uncomfortable, and I'll talk to you then. Thanks.
This has been a Goulash Media production. goulashmedia.net.
This concludes our broadcast day. Click.